My goddaughter who is 18 saw something last year that I can't get off of my mind. She and her best friend were in a neighborhood in New Oxford, Pennsylvania. They were in a car just talking. My goddaughter looks up and sees what she thought was a dog sitting near an electrical box. She didn't see a lot of details. She says it was black. All black. She could see black eyes that she noticed because of street lights. Then, she says it noticed her looking at it and it expanded. I asked her to elaborate. She said it grew twice its size and started running at the car. Both girls saw this, screamed and hauled out of there. My goddaughter said it ran beside the car for a bit then disappeared. She felt sick as well after it was over. What's even odder is the fact now her and her best friend's relationship is on the outside and her best friend is moving away soon. All I can think is Hellhound warning of this. Except it had no red eyes and no other features that she could make out other than it was built kind of like a Great Dane. I have drawn a picture of it and she said it's dead on accurate and scares her. Just wanted your opinion. I have attached sketches. Thanks. SK, Hellhound sightings you, CAF's Spartan 1 year ago. I was talking to a buddy of mine Saturday night, and he told me about a story from when he was in his early 20s and him and his cousin got chased into the house by an insanely large black dog with the body shape of a hyena, long front legs, curved back and shorter back legs, and it had red eyes. He showed me the dent in the back door left and showed me pictures of its giant paw print in the mud. Sounds a lot like a similar experience I had 5 miles and 4 years before his experience. I got chased through the woods on my bike by a large black dog, that had reddish eyes that seemed to reflect the light. Has anyone else experienced this? Hellhound sighting in Tennessee. This happened a couple years back, 3, I think. But I'm not really good with time, but I've only recently gotten into Reddit, paranormal subs, so here I am. I was probably 19 or 20 when this happened. I've always believed in the supernatural, even beyond ghosts, spirits. My mom, who is, in her own words, sensitive, has some issues with that. She thinks ghosts are natural and plausible, but hellhounds, etc. are too Hollywood for her. This point of view has somewhat changed, however, because she witnessed this with me and hasn't been able to explain what she saw. I live in Tennessee, in a really small town that I don't feel comfortable disclosing the name of because it's that small. It's about 70 or 80 miles from Nashville, to get an idea. There's always been weird things that happen in this town. There's so many houses that are just accepted as haunted. There's streets with a few ghost stories attached, but as far as I know, the street I saw the hound on hasn't had anything of the sort. This street is literally only one over from where I live. There's a crossroads there. It was late at night, probably around 10 or 11, and my mom was driving. I was in the passenger's seat. I was scrolling through a playlist on my phone when suddenly there was a change in the air and I was compelled to look up, and right as I did, something darted across the road, something that was big and dark and too fast to be natural. When I saw it, my body went cold and rigid. Fear immediately took over my entire system and I started to cry. I don't get scared easily, and my mom knows this, and I think that's partly why she believes it really was something and not just a dog. I was shaking and still crying as we entered town, and my mom pulled over in the safety of a gas station's lights so that I could try to calm down. We don't go on the road at night anymore. We barely go during the day. I get a sense of dread every time I look in its direction. There's been a few nights since then where I've heard strange howling that doesn't match up with any of the neighborhood dogs and I know it's got to be the hound. There was another instance last year where my mom saw something dart across a road that connects to the one road, not a part of the crossroads, at the other end, but I didn't see it that time. She says it made her feel cold and terrified the moment she saw it, however. And it's probably unrelated, but about a year after the initial encounter, we were driving through town at sunset, and a big, black dog appeared out of nowhere. We should have hit it, but it seemed to disappear beneath our tires. We pulled over and there was no evidence we'd hit it, but the dog was definitely there. I didn't get the same feeling as the first time, I was definitely scared, but I think it was more the prospect of wrecking, but it didn't send me into a full-scale panic attack like the Hellhound had. Maybe it was a black dog. Because there was no way it was something normal. I think I was saved by a Hellhound. Lazarus 3 years ago. I've never shared anything on Reddit before, but for most of my life, I've been sort of a supernatural magnet. My friend has been encouraging me to share some of my stories. I might post this one a few different places, just to see if it sparks any interest. I'm not ever going to use any real names in my stories. Let's pretend my name is Faye. This happened about 5 years ago, when I was still in high school. At the time, I was really close friends with a guy, let's call him Jason. I had recently told Jason about how a lot of things happen to me that are difficult to explain. We kind of got to talking about my different encounters, and he asked me, seemingly hesitantly, if I had ever seen a demon. I said that I didn't think anything quite so sinister had ever crossed my path. Jason then explained to me that his mum was worried that something strange was happening in their house. She said she had gotten sudden chills, heard some strange noises, and had been feeling uneasy in general in the house lately. Now, at this point, I had exactly zero experience with demons or anything of the sort, so I was not aware there was anything to really worry about. I told Jason I would come over that weekend and see if anything felt out of the ordinary. A few nights later, my phone lights up at 4 in the morning. It's Jason. He says I need to come over ASAP, that something wasn't right. He said he'd been hearing scratches in the walls, and had dismissed it as just a squirrel or something, until that night, when the scratches started knocking. He said he could swear it was like someone was knocking rhythmically from inside the walls. I was at his house by sunrise. I was preparing myself for the worst when I got to his house. The only thing I knew about demons was what I had seen in movies. I was ready for head spinning and projectile vomit. When I got there, it was nothing. I felt nothing. Everything seemed completely normal. I went all over the house, put my ear to the walls, I even checked out the creepy basement. I felt nothing strange or sinister. I didn't want to make Jason feel like an idiot, so I just gently assured him that whatever was there was gone now, and that he didn't have anything to be afraid of. Secretly, I thought he had just over-exaggerated the whole thing. We all left the house for the day. Later that evening, I was back at his house for dinner. His parents went to bed, and we were in his living room downstairs, talking about nothing in particular. The conversation eventually shifted naturally over to his mother's suspicions. We were talking about the scratching and knocking in the walls, and we were kind of joking around about it. You know that feeling when you're talking about something that you know you really shouldn't be talking about? The conversation just felt off, suddenly. I felt wrong for talking about it. Just a general feeling of uneasiness all around. I abruptly changed the subject. I eventually headed home around 11 p.m. Jason lives pretty far out of town, in a heavily wooded area. I was maybe halfway home, and suddenly, inexplicably, horrifyingly, a feeling hit me like a brick wall. This white-hot rage overcame me. It's difficult to describe. It was like I had passed through a fog, and on the other side, I had come out homicidal. Something was in Jason's house. And it had followed me home. I don't believe I was possessed, because I remember it all. I was definitely me, I was just this cocktail of aggression. Then, in the middle of the road, I saw what I thought at first was a wolf. The closer I got to it, the more I realized it wasn't an animal I had ever seen before. It had all the physical traits of a dog, wolf, but it was so much bigger. It had wild, black fur, and its teeth were bared. It looked simultaneously ragged and enormous. It was abnormally low to the ground. That's when I realized it was crouching. It made a dead sprint for my car, and I was too close to it to slow down in time. I knew the size of this animal would likely total my car. I braced myself for a crash. I braced, and waited. And opened my eyes, and it was gone. So was whatever had followed me home. I've told this story to a few of my friends, and they all agree that it sounded like the dog I had seen was a hellhound, and it was looking for whatever had followed me home, and took it back to wherever it came from. Dr. Ray Naughty Demon followed me home from a friend's house, and its hellhound dad showed up to spank them. Log in, register R, paranormal experience seen a large black dog, maybe a hellhound. Pa.242. Why this story comes from my girlfriend, who told me that a couple of months ago her mom was exiting an office she works at in the middle of the night when she saw an apparition. She described it as looking like a very abnormally large black dog that was staring her down in the parking lot. Apparently the dog charged at her and vanished as it went through her, not to be seen again after that. Now my girlfriend's mum is no stranger to the paranormal and has tons of crazy stories, and this being the latest incident, she knew it meant something bad. She called my girlfriend frantically, asking her to check on her grandpa, who they were taking care of for about a year at that point, but he was okay. 2 days later, however, he passed away. This also happened to my girlfriend's grandma, mom's side, where she was outside and saw a large black dog on the roof of her house staring her down until it jumped down and vanished into her as well. Her first husband died after she received this visit from the dog. From what I could take from the story, it seemed more immediately than 2 days. It was the first I've ever heard of a large black dog figure appearing, and a few hours later my curiosity led me to searching for similar experiences online and stumbled across mythology and folklore speaking of large black dogs and or hellhounds being omens of death. It was also the first my girlfriend ever heard of that either. There's tons of stories I hope to write on this subreddit in the near future. I just thought I'd start with this one since it just happened in June. Hope this was a cool read for you all. Ghostly things seem to avoid me at all costs. The one entity that visits my room has only appeared to others but is gone by the time I get to peek over or come back. But even though these aren't first-hand experiences, I believe them. Wait, I just remembered there were a couple unexplainable things I saw when I was younger. I knew there was something I had forgotten about. Putting tags now so I can come back and remember later. Converse, bag, and soap.